From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is Ag Day.
The bright spot in agriculture.
Slow rebuild
is just not the way markets work.
How long can these higher prices last? An update as we take a fresh look at the state of the beef industry. While moving grain continues to be a challenge on one major waterway, and the impact that can have on producers.
The basis is going to be where that's showing.
As farmers in the Midwest continue to see dry conditions along with some surprises.
I really think this could be the best year we've ever had.
An update from the field as more combines roll right now on Ag Day.
Ag Day is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Some areas of the Midwest finally seeing some rain over the weekend. While for others, days of dry weather persist and the drier conditions are continuing to impact harvests. Now, late last week, we checked on harvest in central Illinois with two growers. One told us it hadn't rained in his area since August 27th. Many in the area have started harvesting early season corn planted back in April. Now, when it comes to soybeans, there's concern later planted beans may have lost some yields in the drier conditions. Farmers actively watching bean moisture levels right now.
You don't want beans to go under like 13.5% moisture because you don't get that yield back. So they're trying to get them there, but with this dry weather, beans have dropped drastically in the last 5 days. So growers are harvesting in the morning, and then when they get too dry in the afternoon, they're quitting.
We've got some areas out here with some green pods yet, and I'm sure the whole field would test, probably too dry, probably 9–10% I'm hearing from neighbors. And ideally, you'd like to be 13%. But I've seen over the years too many times those beans that are in the green pods yet, and small green beans, go out the back of the machine. And then when you get a nice warm rain and they start to grow, it looks like cover crop out here. So I think we're going to hold tight till next week.
Ketchening says this could be the best year he's ever had when it comes to yields. Moving those big crops down the Mississippi River could prove to be a challenge, with low water levels continuing to be an issue. Right now, transporters are having to reduce tow sizes along with tons of goods per barge they can carry. There are also delays in transit of 24 to 48 hours due to reduced navigable space in certain areas. Now, water levels have been dropping since the middle of July, reaching nearly 8 feet below the historic average in Memphis earlier this month. Experts say the impact is starting to show up in basis.
3 weeks will be really important when we think about what's going on. The low water levels really make a difference on how much we can move, not just how many barges move, but how full the barges can be. And what's the supply-demand issue? When we can't have enough supply of transportation to move product down the river, it backs up, and the basis is going to be where that's showing.
It's estimated about 60% of all grain exports from the U.S. are shipped utilizing the Mississippi River. So are there more chances for rain this week? Meteorologist Jack Van Meter has a look ahead.
Yeah, actually, we are going to be seeing some rain this week as that big ridge of high pressure finally starts to break down. A low is going to ride up and kind of squeeze out a lot of moisture. We can see a nice little slug of moisture all the way from Texas and the Four Corners states all the way up until right around Illinois as well. As they put this in motion, we can just see just going to compound on that as well. And also looking at some pretty nice downpours out in New Mexico as well, as we start to see a lot of rain throughout much of the country. And this beautiful shot from Pat Swanson in Iowa. That's not the sun, but actually the moon, a harvest moon, in fact, adding a little extra light to all those farmers burning the midnight oil to bring in the crops. I'll have your forecast in just a second.
Something else that could impact movement of ag goods out of the country, a potential dock workers strike set to begin October 1st on the East and Gulf Coast. Now, we've been keeping you updated on the negotiations between the International Longshoremen's Association and the United States Maritime Alliance. The contract with the dock workers is scheduled to run out on September 30th, and so far, no formal negotiations have been held and none are scheduled. What does it mean for ag? Well, the U.S. Meat Export Federation supplying these graphics showing that 45% of all waterborne U.S. pork exports are shipped out through the East and Gulf Coast ports. When it comes to beef, that number is 30%.
You know, that 30 might sound a little low, but it doesn't mean it's not important, because there's quite a high percentage of chilled beef that goes out, very high value chilled beef that goes out from the East Coast in particular for destinations like Europe and Middle East. So we can't overstate the importance of the East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. Even though the West Coast is larger, still a very significant quantity is exported through the East and Gulf Coast.
Ahlstrom says there is the potential to redirect more meat exports to the West Coast, but not as a long-term solution because other commodities are using those same ports. He's asking the White House to intervene.
The State of the Beef Industry on Ag Day is brought to you by Vermeer, helping farmers and ranchers be equipped to do more. And by Rabo AgriFinance. Discover how local relationship managers and global sector expertise can help you address challenges and seize opportunities. Rabo AgriFinance. Let's talk. Learn more at www.raboag.com.
The U.S. cattle herd is at a 70-year low due to liquidation from drought, pushing cattle prices to record highs earlier this year. But how long will that market last? Ag Day's Michelle Rook joins us with an update on the state of the beef industry.
Just how long the tail is on this historic cattle market is a function of both supply and demand now and moving forward, and especially how fast producers respond to market signals when it comes to herd rebuilding. Market experts tell me that while herd contraction is slowing, it hasn't reversed, which could keep supplies tight and prices strong for a while. Cattle numbers are record low. In lieu of USDA's mid-year cattle inventory report, CattleFax released their own projections, estimating beef cow inventories 400,000 below a year ago. Beef cow slaughter has been down sharply, but not enough to overcome the record low beef heifer inventory as of January 1st, 2024.
It's pretty unavoidable that it was still ticking smaller yet year over year as of July 1. It still looks like it'll be fractionally lower as of January 1 of this coming year.
He says beef replacement heifer inventories are likely steady to slightly higher, but remain historically tight, estimated up a narrow 50,000 head from last year, but will be influenced by the return of drought.
The point is that that's only fractionally so, and numbers are still more or less at cycle lows and record lows. Dropping below the prior lows in the last cycle.
CattleFax also projects the 2024 calf crop to be record low, reflecting a smaller breeding herd coming into the year.
We're anticipating that this year's calf crop will be about 700,000 head smaller, or down around 2% compared to 2023.
That will continue to translate into tighter feeder cattle and fed cattle supplies.
Certainly with the placement distribution, we're looking for tighter fed cattle supplies for the remainder of the year. That should be price supportive.
And it also sets up an optimistic 5-year outlook.
We're still seeing in that time window, a cycle high. We'll see price and supplies increase and markets contract. But at the broader view of this market, we still have a very positive view for the market overall because beef demand has been so robust.
Yet he sees increased volatility and cautions that while rebuilding has been slow, producers will still respond to higher prices.
Slow rebuild
is just not the way markets work.
That, combined with increased efficiency, higher carcass weights, and the beef on dairy revolution, will offset the lower numbers now and for the next 5 years. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for Ag Day.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Well, livestock markets were fighting to hold on to gains to end last week. We'll see what's in store for traders this week in Markets Now next. And later, ag equipment demand may be softening, but that's not the only factor influencing prices. Machinery Pete explains today after weather. Another renewable biofuel production facility is planned this time for Louisiana. Woodland Biofuels is planning a more than $1 billion investment at the Port of South Louisiana in Reserve. The Toronto-based company said the facility would utilize waste biomass to produce sustainable biofuel that would be used for vehicles, heating, and electricity. The company says an engineering design study for the site is anticipated to be finalized by the second quarter of next year, with a final investment decision expected by the end of next year. It expects commercial operations for the first phase of that project, a renewable natural gas production plant, to start in 2028. Grains were mixed to end last week, but cattle continue to climb. Ag Day's Michelle Rook has more on what analysts will be watching this week in Markets Now.
Corn and soybeans ending lower on Friday. Jim McCormick with agmarket.net is back with analysis. Jim, soybeans and corn, are we just seeing some typical harvest or hedge pressure there?
I think you're definitely seeing a little bit of typical harvest and hedge pressure. We are really moving to the full steam of harvest right now. And there's a lot of grain, unfortunately, Michelle, that's been unpriced. So producers have got to make some economic decisions. That's coming to market. I'd say one other topic you need to keep an eye on is we've had to have that Fed decision. Before the Fed decision, a lot of funds were getting out of their positions, trying to mitigate risk. I think that was propelling the market up. Now that we're past that decision, I think it's all on to what these yields are and what the farmer does with the crop as they harvest it.
Right, and the market is also looking at the South American weather, especially Brazil, and whether we start getting some rains here in October, right?
That's right. If South America starts getting weather in October, in November, like they traditionally do, and as the long-term forecasts are suggesting, that could set them off to a very good start of planting. And I think that would break the market, because if Brazil does have a regular crop, your projected world carryouts will be at all-time highs.
And the fact that China is buying most of their beans from Brazil and not the U.S. kind of just adds insult to injury on that, doesn't it?
It definitely does, and we got to keep an eye on it. I mean, right now here, President Biden is talking about ratcheting up, or is actually going to ratchet up the trade war tensions a little bit by slapping more tariffs on Chinese EVs, as well as other imported products.
As we start a new week, Jim, and we see harvest progressing, what are you hearing for early yields on corn and beans?
Right now, in general, Michelle, we are seeing very good yields pretty much across the Corn Belt. We are hearing pockets here and there that are a little bit disappointing compared to expectations, but overall, I would argue at the current numbers we're hearing suggest that the USDA is very close to being accurate.
All right, so that could keep some pressure on this market through harvest. Do we retest the lows?
That's the million-dollar question. I think, unfortunately, right now, I think there is a real probability we could go down and test the lows. Plain and simple, we do not have enough grain sold. There's not enough room to store all this corn and beans on farm. As we go into the latter part of harvest, I think that gets dumped on the market, and that could push it back down and test those early or late summer lows.
Thanks so much. That is Jim McCormick, agmarket.net. We'll have more Ag Day coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
To contact Jim McCormick at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net.
Taking a look at some of the new changes, we have a 2-hour drought monitor. We can see a lot of areas really experiencing some of those dry conditions, all of which has just been caused by high pressure really just evading any sort of precipitation in the forecast. We all know that West Virginia has been very, very dry. They're dealing with that extreme and actually exceptional drought as well. That is unfortunately starting to spread up to Ohio. Just a big story there. And as we can see, for much of the South and Midwest as well, look at Tennessee, all in dry and severe drought criteria there. And also going out west, dealing with some pretty dry conditions as well. Again, not really going to be helping out with those California wildfires that we are seeing. But we are looking at the fall precipitation outlook that was just issued a little bit ago, and we can see that a familiar pattern is starting to set in. That's going to be La Nina, actually, our new pattern that we're shifting into this winter. And as we can see, above average up in the Great Lakes and east, and actually below average amounts of precipitation, especially for the central south. So we're talking Texas and also Four Corners states as well. So something we're keeping pretty close eye on here at Ag Day. Fall temperatures, though, pretty much going to mirror actually where we're seeing below amounts of precipitation. Again, it's going to be out west and south. Again, New Mexico and Texas. We're looking at a lot of warm temperatures, and a lot of warm temperatures if you go up the East Coast as well, especially there in Maine. But equal chances, especially up to the north there, and that actually makes a lot of sense. Again, with La Nina patterns, we're going to be getting some cooler temperatures, or at least seasonable temperatures on our northern half of our country. And again, it's all being driven by the jet stream, which is currently kind of going through a phase change right now. We had that big ridge set up in the middle of the country that is finally broken down. We're seeing this deep low start to develop over the Great Lakes. I'll put this in motion. As we can see that low just diving through Michigan and then into Indiana and parts of Ohio. But as we can see out west again, still going to be dealing with another ridge of high pressure, bringing more chances of high temperatures and also of less rain at all. As I put this in motion here, precipitation going to pretty much match that as well. Lebanon, Tennessee, high of 92 degrees, low of 69 degrees. Petoskey, Michigan, partly cloudy conditions, cooler, 67 degrees, low of 51 degrees. And finally, Selma, California, 98 degrees and a low of just 63 degrees.
So what factors will go into setting the price of used equipment? Machinery Pete has the details next. And later, a rescue mission with a positive return. We're off to Georgia to meet Oreo in the country. There's a lot more that goes into auction prices than just supply and demand, as Machinery Pete tells us.
Well, folks, anytime we're talking auction prices, we need to be aware there are variables. Now, let's talk about some of those variables today. First off, timing. We know the ag market goes up and down. We've certainly seen that the last year and a half here. Second factor, location. Now, it used to be where an item sold at auction made a big difference on sale price. And that got flattened out a lot through the pandemic in the last couple of years when equipment was so hard to find. Stuff sold high everywhere. But now it's becoming more of a factor again. And third, how is an item spec'd out? Of course, these days that can make a huge difference. Now let's take some recent examples on a John Deere 6130R loader tractor. Let's look at 4 that sold recently. So last Wednesday on an online auction in conjunction with the Farm Science Review show over in Ohio, our friends at United Country Walton Realty and Auction sold this 22 model John Deere 6130R with 480 hours, no loader, went for $110,000. Now 4 days before that, September 14th, down in Sardis, Mississippi, on a consignment auction by 5 Star Auctions, this 23 model 6130R with a loader and only 125 hours went for $116,250. Now 3 weeks ago, good folks at Big Iron and Sullivan Auctioneers had an online auction in conjunction with the Farm Progress Show for Van Wall Equipment in Boone, Iowa. And they sold a pair of 6130Rs on that auction. Here's a 21 model, only 126 hours, no loader, went for $113,500. Same sale, they sold this 22 model 6130R, 407 hours, but it did have a loader, and that went for $132,000. Now, like I said, timing makes a difference. So even though good used loader tractors have held their value well, they were stronger earlier this year. So if we go back to June 28th, online dealer auction for AgriVision equipment out of Pacific Junction, Iowa by Rice Auction, this 22 model John Deere 6130R, 392 hours, no loader, went for $156,500, all-time record high auction price on a 6130. But again, that was back at the end of June.
All right, thanks, Pete. Now, once was lost is now found. Police helping get Oreo back home after a great escape. We're off to Georgia for that story next.
Machinery Pete on Ag Day is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Firestone Ag now offers Bridgestone tractor tires, the ultimate lineup of tires engineered to deliver enhanced wear life, durability, and ride comfort on the road. To learn more, talk to your local certified Firestone Ag dealer.
A runaway pig is back home with a little coaxing from the men and women in blue. Meet Oreo. As you can see, there are a whole lot of ham. Police in Cobb County, Georgia were called to help wrangle Oreo back to its pen in Marietta. That's just northwest of Atlanta. Now, Oreo was more than willing to help officers out with the help of some dog bones and carrots. And before you make any jokes about police and pigs, the department says they were ready for them after posting this 8-second clip on social media. Now, by the way, this isn't the first time Oreo ran away from home. Its owner says it's happened twice before. And that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in Farm Country.